Hello everyone, my name is Jaydeep Chakraborty. Today I am going to discuss about our tool OntoConnect, which is a tool which uses unsupervised ontology alignment approach with the recursive neural network. So these are the outline. I will go through all these aspects and we'll discuss about the little bit of what is the ontology element, what is our motivation, what is we are trying to address, and in the end we will talk about the entire project flow of our tool and how it is contributing and what it is contributing, and we will do a result analysis on a dataset called anatomy dataset. So first, what is the ontology alignment? So ontology alignment is a process of finding correspondence between ontological entities. Now here in this definition, we know that ontology is simply knowledge base. It's a knowledge base representing a particular domain. It consists of classes, concepts, and instances. And the main idea of ontology alignment is to find correspondence or similar concepts or classes or instances from different ontologies. They maybe belong to same domain or maybe from the different domain. So this is the main aim of ontology alignment, to create a linked knowledge base. The main motivation is uh, we we have seen that in most of the state of the art ontology alignment, there is an involvement of the domain expert, and um, it 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 always in most of the cases it's rule based, and we can see that it highly depends on the domain experts, how they are writing the rules, how they are creating the similarities between the different entities present in the ontology. This is very labor intensive and this is not cheap. So what our aim is to whether we can create a pipeline or tool which can do the ontology alignment independent of the domain knowledge or any domain expert intervention. So these are the research questions that we are trying to we try to address. First is whether ontology alignment can be done independent any domain information or any domain expert intervention or not. Uh, the second one is beside the entity label or entity information, can we use some kind of meta information or structure information to enhance the similarity? And the third one is, can we use some unsupervised machine learning instead of traditional rule-based approaches or not? Because in most of the cases we can see there it's hardly get the goal value or goal truth. So is there any way we can use unsupervised machine learning to find out the similarities between two ontologies or not? So our contribution of the OntoConnect tool is simply we are able to use unsupervised learning based method to train our data on source ontology itself, and we train the data and it learns the weights and biases, and based on that we are able to predict the similar entities just by using the target ontology. So we also tested our code on the anatomy dataset, um, uh, and we tested our dataset with the reference goal truth that provided in OEEI, which is Ontology Alignment Evolution Initiative, and we also that the with the detailed analysis and the hyperparameter tuning, we can generate result which are comparable to the state of our domain specific approaches. So what's the research idea? So the research idea is on the left side, we can see uh, one of the meta information structure of source ontology. For example, let's say our data set is anatomy data set. So we have two ontologies. One is the human anatomy and the second one is the mouse anatomy. Here human anatomy is the source ontology and the target ontology is mouse ontology. So the aim of or the task is basically to find out similar human entities corresponding to a particular mouse entity. So on the left side we can see that, let's say h1 is one human class. So it has all the meta information. So meta informations over here are parent class, child class, equivalent class, disjoint class, and restriction classes. On the other hand, on the right side, we have another class M1, which is from the mouse entity. And it has also parent class, child class, equivalent class, all those meta information. Now, it is not necessary that they have to have all the information. The information can be there or cannot be there. So the main idea is we'll train our recursive neural model only with the human ontology and we save the information. And the idea is if any particular target ontology has the same meta information, then it will predict a vector which should be similar to H1. Then we can say that H1 and M1 are similar entities. So that is our main research idea. Okay, so this is the entire system flow of the OntoConnect tool. So we can see that it is divided into two sections. First one is the learning or the training part, and the second one is the prediction or testing part. We can see in the learning part, we are just only using source ontology. So that's why we are calling it unsupervised. And on the prediction, we are simply predicting on the target ontology and get the predicted um, similar source ontological entity as output. So the first part is the data preparation part. For this part, we have used OWL API and a Hermit Reasoner to extract all the meta information. So we already discussed the meta information of any particular entity or class are the parent class, the child class, the equivalent classes, the disjoint classes, and the restrictions. So these are all meta information and also as well as the labels of the class itself. So we are using all this information as meta information. So after the data preparation, the next part is data pre-processing. In the data pre-processing part, we have used some of the basic NLP techniques to clear or clean our labels. So we simply use some special characters, we remove some of those, we remove some of the stop words. We used lemmatization and used some of the custom words, um, you know, to make our data more clean. So after the data pre-processing part, next part is vector generation. Now, as we have only the labels, so we have to, so the input to the recursive neural networks are simply vectors. So instead of starting from scratch, we thought we used FastText, which is a pre-trained model to get the vectors for each ontological entity, and this is for the reason to get the to actually have the semantic information. So we should have the semantic information. So instead of zero vector on or one hot code vector, we use fast text to generate vectors for each entities from both source ontology and the target ontology. So FastText is a pre-trained library, and it is developed by Facebook's AI Research Lab. And by default, it generates 300 dimension vector for each word, for each entities from the source and ontology, or for the source and the target ontologies. The main reason behind using the FastText is as we are working on anatomy dataset. So most of the words are not generally used in day-to-day English. uh, in day-to-day English words. So what happens is in most of the cases is we do not get any meaningful vector for particular entity. But what fastx does is instead of giving exception or giving zero vector, it gives some meaningful vector and it follows the n-gram method. So even the word is not present in the dictionary, it still gives us a vector that we can start with. So that is the main reason we use fastx vector. So this is a simple 3D representation of all the classes we have. One example we can see is olfactory nerve and all the information. This is a 3D representation of our vector. So after the generation, next part is the model learning part where we are training our model. So as we discussed, we have this meta information, and H1 is one entity from the source ontology, which is here is mouse uh, ontology, and M1 is from the target ontology. For the learning part, we are only using the meta informations of H1. Okay. So for the training part, the model that we use is recursive neural network, and it is an extension of the recurrent neural network which accepts the graph or tree based. So we can see that our data is basically tree based. It's a nonlinear input. So recursive neural network is the best one because we can have in any number of branches for particular entity. So that's why we use RNN over here. So this is a very high level overview of our RNN architecture where we can see we have parent class word vector as inputs, child class word vectors as inputs is simply average and average them out and then merge it into a single vector. So in the end, we have the output vector and that's how we are training our model. So after the trained model, the next part is calculating the entity similarity. So in the entity similarity, we basically calculated two similarity values. One is the word similarity and the second one is the meta similarity. So word similarity is basically calculated between source entity and the target entity itself. It does not count any meta information. But the meta similarity on the other hand is simply using the meta information or using the OntoConnect model that we trained. So using the OntoConnect model, for every target entity, we have a predicted vector, and we calculated the cosine distance between that predicted vector and the source entity vector, and which one is the whatever entity from the source target is the nearest. We actually calculated that okay, this particular human ontology or the source target ontology might be similar with the target one. As we have two different similarity, we have to combine this similarity into a single similarity. So we have used harmonic mean of this two similarity score. So after this, we have trained our model. Now the data set that we tested on. So we have worked with the anatomy data set that is provided at the ontology OEI website. So this is the reference file or output where entity one is from the target entity, which is mouse, and entity two is from the human entity, which is from human. So it is saying that this particular entity is similar with NCI, which is from human entity ontology. For this approach, we have used this is the evolution metric that we have used, where F score is the harmonic mean of precision and recall, where A is the aligned total number of correspondence predicted from our tool, and R is the reference alignment. This is the result analysis we have. So we have number of parameters. So at the top, we can see we have varied our dimension from 100 dimension, 200 dimension, and 300 dimension. We also varied the similarity threshold to find out okay for which threshold value we are getting the best output. and top 1, top 3, top 5 are the number of prediction. So that instead of our tool is able to predict not only the top one, we can also predict, okay, top, what are the top 3 similar correspondence we have, or what are the top 5 similar correspondence we have. Now, in the result analysis, we can see that with the similarity threshold value, um, the precision is increasing and the recall is decreasing. So we have found that at the threshold value of 0.96, we got the best F score value. Here we can see with the different dimensions, we have obviously with the 300 dimension, we have better result. So that means that as the dimension increases, it holds more and more information. But we can see that it's very close to each other. So that means that even with the smaller dimension with 100D, we can still achieve similar accuracy with our approach. Similarly, for the top 5, top 3, and top 1, we can see that our tool can be used to as an assistive tool to the domain expert. So the domain expert, it they do not have to go through the entire data set. They can have a smaller data set, which will help them to find out the actual answer. So these are the some of the result analysis we can see, where we can see that we tallied between some of the test cases where we have the what simulated rank only, meta simulated rank and only, and the combined similarity rank. In some of the cases, case 1 and case 2, we can see that both what similarity and meta similarity rank are in high. In case 4 and 5, it did not actually do well, but in case 7, 8, 9, we can see that our meta similarity rank is better. So that's why the combined similarity rank is predicting it correct. So here we can see that our tool basically suppress the word similarity rank problem. So with the help of meta information, we get the actual output or the actual correspondence from over here. So we can see that with the help of meta information, we can improve the overall accuracy of the system. So this is one result analysis. So these are some of the state of the art tools already available. So if we see that though the OntoConnect did not suppress them, but it is definitely from the point of F measure, it is definitely comparable. And the main idea is all the other state of the art algorithms, they use rule-based approach, they use domain expert, but in our case, we are not using any external knowledge or any domain experts intervention. It's simply the same model. We have to train with the source ontology itself, and we can use it on ontologies from any domains. Thank you, everyone. So this is our OntoConnect tool, which uses unsupervised neural network approach and which employs recursive neural network to find out ontological alignment between different ontologies. If you have any question, you can email me or you can ask me. Thank you very much.